Hello and welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about magic that's probably wrong, but fun to talk about. I'm Shauna.
I'm Leslie.
And today we are bringing you a deep dive into one of the new commander decks that have just come out with the new Commander's Legends set. There are 4 decks in total, right? 4?
Yeah.
And we are really excited to do some deep dives for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the cards in this deck, what the deck is meant to do, how it works, what you have to play first, what's really good, what's maybe not so and then if you stick around long enough to the end, we will give you some tweaks that we thought of that might be helpful for these decks. So we're going to dive into this one. First of all, it's party time, Leslie. Tell us about the
Party
commander.
time. Excellent. This is a great deck. This is my favorite deck. It's also the most expensive deck out there right now, market wise, just because there's some great cards in it. She's a high maintenance woman. But what does she do? Nalia de Arnaz, I don't know. Anyways, she's a 3 mana cost, 3/3 commander. And she's fantastic because she allows you, when she's on the battlefield, to look at the top card of your library at any time. Knowledge is power. That in and of itself, if that was all she did, would be super awesome because you know what's coming. But she also has the ability that you can cast Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, and Wizard spells from the top of your library. So essentially what that does is it adds your library into your hand, in a sense. Because if you cast something off the top of your library, you then get to look at the next card. So let's just say you had a wizard on there and a warrior on there and a cleric on there and a rogue on there, all in a row. You could essentially cast all 4 of those, as long as you had the mana for them, right off the top of your library, while keeping the mitt full of hands that you have for when you need them. So yeah, your handful of mitts, your mitt full of cards for when you need them. So that's fantastic. And then, as if that wasn't good enough, at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, which I'll get to in a second, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain death touch until the end of turn. So not only are they getting bigger, they get counters, and they have death touch, so no one's going to want to block them necessarily unless they want to sacrifice some creatures. So she is a dynamic, awesome build a party commander. So what's a party? A party is basically Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, Wizard is a full party. If you have a party of 3, Cleric, Rogue, Wizard, basically every time you count a creature, you look at their type. So she is a human rogue. So she counts as a rogue in this party, and you would only count her once. So you can't, if it's a changeling, for example, which we'll get to when we start talking about cards, they actually count as all creature types, but you can't count them as all 4 of them. You can only count them as one. So that is what this deck is meant to do, and so we'll see what cards it has in it to make that happen. But before we do that, Shauna, why don't you tell the lovely viewers out there what the guts of this card are all about, or this deck are all about?
So I'll tell you a little bit about the mana curve of this deck. So it's a pretty low to the ground, aggressive kind of deck with 8 cards at like 0 to 1 cost, 13 at 2, 18 at 3, and then 13 at 4, and then there's only 11 above that. So it's a pretty fast playing deck. The commander itself is only 3 mana, so that's pretty quick. And then if you look at the color breakdown of the cards, there are 31 white and 20 black, and then 5 multicolor and only 7 colorless. So white is predominant in this deck for sure, with a little bit of black in there to help it out, removal and that sort of thing. And then if we look at the card types, like I said, aggressive, 45 creatures, 7 artifacts, 3 enchantments, and 8 sorcery and instances. So this is a deck that's all about swinging with all those. The party is on, basically. So we also talk about these decks in terms of a deck building formula, and I'm going to let Leslie tell you all about that formula.
Awesome. Well, this is a formula, not the only formula, but this will build you a middle of the ground precon level deck. We find that Wizards of the Coast kind of uses this unless they're going total theme. So we'll see how close it is to this. But recommended wise, when we build our commander decks, obviously one commander, we like to have about 15 ramp cards to get you in the game, 15 removal cards to keep them out of the game, 13 card draw, 12 high impact, and then 10 that will support your theme in some way, shape, or form. We call those our support or our other cards, and around 34 land. Of course, any of those can fluctuate 2 to 3 cards up or down depending on your build and what you want to do. But those are the categories that you want to try and have in your deck. So we're going to evaluate this deck based on those categories and then talk about each of those cards and what they do. What's our first section?
Our first section is that ramp mana generating section. Formula calls for 15. This deck has only about 8 according to our taking a look at it. So it's a little low, but you're looking at that top card of your library all the time, hopefully. So that's kind of like ramp right there. So first card we have here is the Deep Gnome Terramancer. He's a good little gnome wizard guy for 1 and a white, a 2/2 with flash. Flash means you can play it on anyone's turn. And it has Mold Earth, which says whenever 1 or more land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control without being played, you may search your library for a plains card, put it on the battlefield tap, then shuffle. Do this only once each turn. It's a great way to get extra ramp there when other people are playing their extra lands. You can get some too.
Yep. Black Market Connection is the new card in the set that pretty much everyone wants and is the reason why this deck is so expensive, because I believe this card can't be opened. It's an enchantment. We put it in the mana ramp generators just because the first one is probably the one you're going to use early game. Sell contraband basically at the beginning of pre-combat main phase. You get to choose 1 or more, so you could choose them all if you want. You get to create a treasure token, draw a card, or create a 3/2 colorless shapeshifter creature. Now, each of those is going to cost you some life, but that's okay. Life is a resource. So 1, 2, or 3, depending on what you're wanting to do and where you are in the game and what you need. So great card there.
Yeah, you can do those as many times as you want, really, honestly, which is a little crazy. Choose 1 or more. So you can choose the same one 5 times if you want to lose that much life. Like, why not? Crazy. Then we're getting into our artifacts that are typically found in these commander decks. So it's very nice that they give us these lovely artifact ramp generating things like Soul Ring for sure, which is the 2 mana 1 drop artifact. And then of course we have the Arcane Signet, which taps for any mana in your commander's color identity. And we have the lovely Orzhov Signet, which is nice to have, that taps for both the white and the black if you pay 1. And then the Talisman of Hierarchy, which is, again, the white to the black staple that everybody wants to have. And it is, it can tap for the white or black as well, but you take a damage, but that's okay. It's giving you mana.
Yep. Life is resource. And then we have this fun little card, Baracus, Party Leader. He is a 4 mana cost 2/4. Baracus Party Leader is also a cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard. So he counts as all 4 of those. He's not a changeling, so he doesn't count as like any creature type. He just counts as those 4. So he's great for party. But when he attacks, defending player loses X life and you create X treasure tokens where X is the number of creatures in your party. Choose a background. So this guy could be your commander. The choosing a background, that's new with this set. And if you have one of these as your commander, you can choose a background that you can use as a second commander. So that's kind of a neat one. But this is going to get you some treasure tokens when you attack. And just so that we are all aware too, you can only have one party. So it's not like you get if you have like a ton of stuff on the board, you
Yeah.
don't get multiple parties and triggers from all of
Too
those.
bad. Too
Mm-hmm.
bad. Then we have a seasoned dungeoneer that is a 3 and a white for a 3/4 human warrior that when it enters the battlefield, you take the initiative. So whenever you attack, target attacking cleric, rogue warrior, or wizard gains protection from creatures until end of turn, and it explores. So this card has a lot of things happening on it.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, you take the initiative. So I believe, Leslie, correct me if I'm wrong, that means at the end of your turn, you get to draw a card when you take the initiative?
No, initiative is a
Okay,
little
I'm
different
wrong.
than
Okay,
Monarch. It works
all
the
right.
same as Monarch. You can lose it if you
Take damage.
take damage. But whenever one or more creatures a player controls deals combat damage to you, that player takes the initiative. And then whenever you take initiative at the beginning of your upkeep, you get to venture into Undercity.
Oh, that's right. I knew that.
Yeah,
Sorry, you
so
get
it
to
just adds
venture
a little
into that
upkeep
dungeon.
trigger.
There's a special dungeon that goes with this that's called Undercity. If you remember dungeons from the previous thing.
Yeah.
It's a special card. Right.
It's on the screen. You can see
it's on the
it.
screen. I can see it.
Well, you can't, but they can. They will, because I'll put it there.
You'll be able to see it because Leslie's good. So that's the one thing that's going on. Plus, this gains protection from creatures. So what that means is that this card, it can't be blocked by creatures, basically. That's protection from them. So it can't be blocked by creatures. Definitely can't take any damage from them, but it can't be blocked even. And it explores. So exploring means you get to look at that top card of your library. If it's a land, you put it in your hand. If it's not, you put a 1/1 counter on this guy. Yeah. So that's whenever you attack. You can give that to one of your other target clerics or your whole one of those dudes over there.
Something's going to be unblockable and get bigger. It's awesome. Yep. Mm-hmm. All right, so that wasn't very much ramp, as we said. You might want to put more. You should play with it a couple times and see, but now we're on to our removal section. So our formula says we should have about 15. This deck has about 10, which again is a little low, but it's okay. The first one is Stick Together for 5. It's a sorcery, and each player chooses a party from among creatures they control and then sacrifices the rest. So, as we said earlier, you might have multiple parties because you have a bunch of things, but this is a way to have a board wipe. Other people that you're playing against probably don't have a party. They might have maybe one cleric or one rogue, might have a couple of those things, but they're going to lose most of their stuff, and you're likely going to be able to keep at least 4 creatures. Hopefully they're big and scary at that time and getting you good stuff. So
okay, then we have a card called Crib Swap. This is for 2 white. This is an instant, so it's a tribal instant shapeshifter. So this is where Leslie and I had to do a lot of figuring this out, and we still might have it wrong. So if you know, if we're doing it wrong, let me know. So this isn't a creature, but it is a changeling. So it's every creature type. And it says exile target creature. Its controller creates a 1/1 colorless shapeshifter creature token with changeling. So you could use this to turn something else into one of those things that you need. So you might have that little human. You might want to change it into a cleric or something. But what we figured out is that if you have something that says, if you play a vampire spell, do this. So when it says vampire spell, this means this is a tribal instant. So this would count as a vampire spell. Right, Leslie? That's kind of how we figured
in this deck,
out.
warrior.
In this deck, it's going to be warrior, cleric,
or
whatever. Yeah,
she just likes vampires and has to.
I know. I have to mention vampires. Yes. I don't think there's any vampires in this.
Cards that talk about the number of clerics or wizards or whatever in your graveyard, this continues to be all creature types in your graveyard. So we're like, why would you want shapeshifter on an instant? So that would help with that.
Right.
So otherwise, it's kind of irrelevant. But
Yeah.
The next one we
And
have is
2/2.
Despark for 2. It's an instant exile target permanent with mana value 4 or greater. So, classic.
Classic. And another classic card that I think matches the vampire theme that we're not talking about right now. Dusk to Dawn. So
from
Dusk,
Kit.
it is. So there was lots of it. No, there wasn't.
It
Actually,
was
it was zombies.
zombies.
It was zombies. So Dusk side, so you play this side first. Destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater. Then you turn it sideways from in your graveyard, and you can, that's what the aftermath means, cast this spell only from your graveyard, and then you exile it. So the Dawn side for 3 and 2 white is return all creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Helps
And
you.
remember, that only looks at the power. So if we remember, pretty much every creature we've looked at so far has been power 2 or less. It's like a 2/4 or a 2/2 or whatever. So that helps you in this
That's right.
deck. Austere Command, when I played this, it helped me a lot against the decks that I was playing against anyway. It's a 6 mana cost, 4 and 2 white. For a sorcery, you get to choose 2. Destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, destroy all creatures with a mana value 3 or less, destroy all creatures with a mana value 4 or greater. So whatever you decide that is the biggest threat on the battlefield, you can get rid of 2 of those things. In my case, it was artifacts and enchantments, and then I felt better.
Yes.
They didn't.
Yes, you did. This little birdie here, an Aven Mind Sensor, this is kind of a forgotten about Amonkhet card that people forget about, and it's really, really good. It has flash and flying, so it's a 2/1 flyer, which is hard to hang on to, but flash means if an opponent, it comes in whatever turn, and then it says if an opponent would search a library, that player searches the top 4 cards of that library instead. So it's a good thing to flash in there to say, hey, you're going to go search for your card. You're only allowed to search the top 4 cards. Sorry. That includes
Super
for lands.
annoying. Nothing wrong with being annoying.
Yep, exactly.
And then we have High Priest of Penance. Is a little 1/1 for 2, and when it is dealt damage, you get to destroy target non-land permanent. So this is a nice little, either you're making it bigger and bigger and bigger, and they don't want to block it, because if they do, they're going to lose something, or you just leave it in your little blocking zone, and they don't want to swing in because you can block and kill something, even if it's a 1/1, or destroy something. I love that it's a non-land permanent, and then there is some graveyard recursion in this deck, so you can bring it back and do it all over again.
That's right. Magus of the Balance, it's a little 2/2 for 2. Human Wizard, you can pay 4 and tap it and sacrifice it. Each player chooses a number of lands they control equal to the number of lands controlled by a player who controls the fewest, then sacrifices the rest. Players discard cards and sacrifice creatures the same way.
Yeah.
This is really not very nice, but it evens
Not
the
a
playing
very nice
field.
Yeah.
When someone's getting too crazy with their lands and their hand and all this stuff, you can say, no.
Yeah. Let's just bring everybody back to a normal, even keel. Gaunty, Lord of Luxury, for 4 is a 2/3. He is a rogue, so he helps with your party. He has Death Touch, and when he enters the battlefield, you get to look at the top 4 cards of an opponent's library, exile one of them face down, then put the rest at the bottom of their library in random order. So not only are you playing with their library, you're stealing something from them, which is great removal, and you get to cast that card for as long as it remains in exile. Even if you lose Gaunty, you may spend mana as though it was any color to cast it. So you get an extra spell that's kind of sitting off to the side when you need it, or perhaps you just want to keep it away from the battlefield altogether, which would be fine too.
Yeah. Then we've got the Grim Hireling for 3 and a black, a 3/2 Tiefling Rogue that says whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create 2 treasure tokens. And you can pay a black and sacrifice X treasures. Target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. So that is potentially very damaging if you have a lot of treasure things happening.
And now we move on to our next section, which is card draw and tutors. Our formula says that we should have about 13, and our deck has about 9. Folk Hero is our first one. For 2, it's a legendary enchantment background. So remember, we talked about how your commander may have a background. This might be something that you want to have as your background if you have a commander in your command zone that lets you choose one. When you put it on the battlefield, commander creatures you control have, whenever you cast a spell that shares a creature type with this creature, draw a card, and this ability triggers only once each turn. So it's a nice ongoing card draw. In this case, our commander is a rogue card type, and I believe she is also human. So you cast a human, you get that.
Yep.
You cast a rogue, you get that.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Handy dandy. Harper Recruiter. This is a 2 and a white 3/1 flyer. When it attacks, you look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a cleric, rogue, or warrior and or wizard from among them and put those into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Oh, so you could put all 4 in if you have them. Interesting. Nice.
So very interesting.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Wow. It's all 4.
Nice little tutoring happening there. Then we have a classic, another classic, Skull Clamp for 1. Equipped creature gets +1/-1, and whenever equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards. So you might put this on one of your little 1/1 shapeshifters just to kill it, so that you can die to draw, or so it can die and you draw 2 cards right away. Or you just put it on that thing that you know is probably going to die next turn, or maybe something that they definitely want to kill and then they don't want to kill it anymore because it means you get to draw 2 cards. That's an option as well.
Right on. Corpse Augur 4/2 for 3 and a black. It's a zombie wizard. When it dies, you draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of creature cards in target player's graveyard. So that's awesome.
And of course, Rumor Gatherer is a 3 mana cost 2/3. It has Alliance. So whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get to scry 1. That's any other creature. And if this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, you get to draw a card instead. So that's fantastic. And gets you some scrying as well as some drawing. Yeah.
Then we have a little Priest of Ancient Lore that is a really good card for drafting and stuff. It's a 2 and a white, a 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life and draw a card. Simple. Awesome.
And then Mind Blade Render for 2 is a 1/3, and whenever an opponent is dealt combat damage, if any of that damage was dealt by a warrior, you draw a card and you lose a life. So you do lose some life because you're drawing a card, but again, whatever. You can lose life. It's fine.
Just not too much. Bygone Bishop for 2 and a white, a 2/3 flyer. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 3 or less, investigate. Investigate is where you create a clue that you can pay 2 and sacrifice it and go draw a card. Nice.
And this last one in this section, I think is the last one. Yeah. Grim Haruspex for 3. It's a 3/2. Now this one has Morph, which if you have never played with Morph before, it has this little 1 mana cost. So instead of paying its full mana cost, you could instead pay 1 and then cast this face down as a little I'll talk louder, as a little 2/2 creature. Then turn it face up at any time for its morph cost, which is 3. So 3 of any color though. So let's say you're having trouble, you have white only on the battlefield. No, that wouldn't work. Why would you have trouble casting that? Anyways, it's the same cost, but you get it on the battlefield as a 2/2 to start with, and then you can turn it over at any time, like as an instant. And then whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you get to draw a card. So maybe you want to wait and flip this over as somebody is doing a board wipe or something like that. Or someone blocks a bunch of stuff. and then you're like, haha, I get to draw a card because
Drawing
4
a
creatures
card.
died.
Hi. All right. Then we're on to the high impact section, which is the formula calls for 12, and this is 17.
Yeah.
So this deck is pretty high impact, apparently. They
Yeah.
sacrificed elsewhere to make things happen to win the game.
Which is
so
A-okay. And some of those high
lots
impact
of
cards will
game-winning
fit in
stuff.
those other categories. So yeah.
Yeah. So the first one we have is the Solemn Doom Guide. It's for 3 and a black, a 4/5 flyer. Each creature card in your graveyard that's a cleric, rogue, warrior, and or wizard has unearth, which means that they unearth of 2, which means you can return this card to the battlefield, and this creature gains haste, and then you have to exile at the beginning of the next end step, or if it would leave the battlefield. So you unearth it only as a sorcery. So that's a good way to play that twice. Hooray!
Yep. And then Furyas Retribution. Shauna loves this card, she told me. It costs 4. It's a little bit kind of like 2 whites and a black and in any color. And anyways, when it comes onto the battlefield, this is a saga. So for those that don't know what a saga is, I'll explain that as well. So a saga is kind of like a little story that's going on the battlefield. And the first turn you play it, you get to do the thing in the first chapter, which is the 1. In this case, create a 4/4 white angel warrior creature token with flying and vigilance. Then when it's your turn again, on your upkeep, I believe, Saga enters the battlefield, counter, sacrifice it after. I believe it's on your upkeep. You do number 2, which in this case is until the end of turn, angels you control gain tap to destroy target creature with power less than this creature's power, so something that is 3 or lower. And then angels you control gain double strike until the end of turn. So you may have other angels on the battlefield. You might just have this little one, and that's fine too, because 4/4 double strike is 8. 8 damage is 8 damage. So nice little card there, fairly high impact.
Mm-hmm. Then we've got another reason why this deck is probably a little bit more money is because it has a Maskwood Nexus in it. It is a little artifact, simple little tree thing that is a 4 cost, but it says creatures you control are every creature type. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. So graveyard stuff. Remember, we were talking about graveyard stuff. Or you can pay 3, and you can pay 3 and tap this and create a 2/2 blue shapeshifter creature token with Changeling. So there you go. There's filling up your party.
Yeah. So explain Changeling. We kind of glanced over it before.
Yes. So Changeling it's every creature type. Right?
Yeah.
No? Yes? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so everything.
So then that will help you with your party when, like, if you decide that you want it to be the warrior in the party. Mm-hmm. And then if, let's say, you get a warrior on the battlefield, it doesn't have to stay a warrior. It can turn into something else. So it allows you to kind of mix and match.
Right.
So those are great things to have on the battlefield in this case. Sorry.
Thanks, Leslie.
So Unbreakable Formation is our next one. So you've went through all this trouble to build a nice party. You don't want it to die. So This is a instant for 3 creatures you control gain indestructible until the end of turn. It does have an addendum though. So if you decide to play this on your main phase instead, you get to put a 1/1 counter on each of those creatures and they gain vigilance until the end of turn. So not only are they indestructible, they just got bigger and they have vigilance. So this is a great card.
Game-winning card. Thwart the Grave for 4 and 2 black. It is a sorcery, and the spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. So hopefully 4. So it only costs 2. And you can return target creature card and up to one target cleric, rogue, warrior, or wizard from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's pretty good. 2 cards for 2 might be really good. In fact.
Well, and actually return and up to 1 target cleric, rogue, or wizard. Yeah, so you get 2. I thought it said and there for a second. I was like, so you get 5 cards back. That's crazy.
And up to.
Yeah. Malacure Blood Priest for 2. It's a 2/1. It enters the battle. It's a vampire cleric. It enters the battlefield Each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of creatures in your party. So again, hopefully you have a full party of 4. But this is the one that kind of is like, well, if I have 4 parties, does that mean that I count it? It's not like Rummy. You don't get to like use cards multiple times.
That's awesome. Mother of Runes. This is a little human cleric, 1/1 for 1. And you can tap it and target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. Just protecting her babies.
Basically. I love this card. Can we just pause and just admire the Mother of Ruins, who is the mother of all Magic players, the librarian, the tea lover. She's just the middle-aged mom of this Magic the Gathering, and we both love her. So Felisa, Fang of Silverquill, is a 4 mana cost 3/2. She has flying. She has mentor. And when a non-token creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, which it probably will because of your commander, create X tapped 2/1 white and black inkling creature tokens with flying, where X is the number of counters it had on it. So you're just going to keep, if you have this on the battlefield and they keep killing your little dudes that have counters on them, they're just going to turn them into inklings that have flying. So also mentor, basically if you attack with her as well as something that has a lower power, then you get to put a 1/1 counter on it. And because your commander keeps making everything bigger, if she's out, she's probably going to get bigger. So anything new that comes out on the battlefield is probably going to be lower. So mentor is going to trigger hopefully a lot. So
hopefully.
Yeah.
Then we've got Puppeteer Clique for 3 and 2 black, a 3/2 flyer. And when it enters the battlefield, put target creature card from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste, and at the beginning of your next end step, exile it. So why not? And it also has persist. So when this creature dies, if it had no -1/-1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a -1/-1 counter on it. Do that twice. Steal their big thing. Let it die and be exiled. Da 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 da. Yay.
Yeah. It's totally fine because you get it, bring it back. Pontiff of Blight for 6 is a 2/7. It has extort, and this is the reason I won that game. Other creatures you control have extort. All other creatures you control have extort. What is extort, you might ask?
That's what it is.
Basically, whenever you cast a spell, you get to pay 1, and if you do, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain that much life. So if I cast a spell, let's say I have 4 creatures on the battlefield, I cast a spell, I can extort 4 times because all of my creatures have extort. So I pay 4 mana, and now let's say I have 3 other opponents. They each lose 4 life, and I gain 4 times 3 life, which is 12. So that's how extort works, and that's how you win games.
Yes, and she did. Nighthawk Scavenger for 1 and a black. It is a 1+3, something weird here, card. Flying Death Touch Lifelink. That's nothing to shake a fist at. And its power is equal to 1+ the number of card types among cards in your opponent's graveyards. So that could be potentially pretty big, like Leslie found the other day.
It got killed really quickly, though.
Yes, it was bad.
Shauna won't let anybody else have vampires.
No vampires allowed except mine.
Gisele Goldmane is a 4 mana cost 4/4. It's a cat warrior with first strike, and I can pay 5, and attacking creatures you control get +X/+X until the end of turn, where X is the number of attacking creatures. So this is the attack with everything, pay 5, and make something really, really big that has first strike. The only thing that would make this better is to give it trample.
Michaeus, the Lunarch. I've seen this card do some amazing things sometimes. It's you pay X and a white for a 0/0, and it enters the battlefield with X+1 counters on it. So as many as you can sink into this, the better. But you can tap it and put a 1/1 counter on it, which is really awesome. And you can tap it and remove a 1/1 counter from it and put a 1/1 counter on each other creature you control. this can do so much work for you and putting all those counters on and doing all those things that you have counters for. It's awesome.
Yeah. Squad Commander for 4, it's a 3/3, and when it enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 white core warrior creature token for each creature in your party, hopefully 4. At the beginning of combat, it'll count itself as a warrior, just a reminder. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, creatures you control gain +1, +0, and gain indestructible till the end of turn. So now you can swing with abandon because your creatures have indestructible when they swing and go into battle.
Awesome.
Doesn't protect them from board wipes.
Then we have another of my favorite vampires. This is the Butcher of Malaker for 7, though. It's a 5/4 flying. And when it or another creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. It is so good. Who cares if your tokens die? They're going to lose stuff. It's so awesome.
And it's for each of those things. So nobody wants to kill a bunch of your creatures because that means they lose all of their stuff too. So
exactly. An eye for
calculate. Yeah, exactly. Calculating Lich is a 5/5 for 6. It has menace. And when a creature attacks one of your opponents, that player loses 1 life. Whenever a creature attacks one of your opponents, that player loses 1 life. Why would you want that?
Well, your creatures count too.
I know. But that would just make them attack you instead, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't read that right. I don't know. I don't like that card.
Well, you're going to attack with it and make people lose life.
You are, and you're going to have a whole bunch of stuff, hopefully, and have a big party.
It's goading them a little bit because they're going to want to attack, probably, or maybe not attack. I don't know. But it's attacking. I don't know.
It's risky. It's risky.
Yeah.
I would put that in the other support cards now that I read that.
Yeah. And then speaking of risky, it could win you the game. Speaking of risky, the Dire Fleetravager is a risky 4/4 for 5 menace death toucher. Awesome dude. But when he enters the battlefield, each player loses 1/3 of his or her life rounded up.
Including you.
It's risky, but it could help you win the game.
Especially if you are extorting everything. Gaining life.
And you're losing it.
All right, now we're on another big section. So a lot of these commander decks in this set are very on theme. So this one didn't fail. In our other sections, we were quite low on some, and that's because we have a lot in our other cards on theme and win conditions. We have a formula that asks for about 10 in this section, but we have 18 in this deck is kind of what we were figuring. And the first one is Multiclass Baldrick, which is a 1 mana cost artifact equipment. Equipped creature has lifelink if you control a cleric, death touch if you control a rogue, haste if you control a warrior, and flying if you control a wizard. So it has all of these things, and then it as long as you have a full party, prevent all damage that would be dealt to equipped creature. And so this would be a great thing to put on your commander.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you how to play the game, but that's what I would put it on.
Idea, that's for sure. That's what's nice. Equipment are so nice because you don't lose them when the creature dies.
Yeah.
Savines Reclamation for 2 and a white. It is a sorcery that says return target permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If the spell was cast from a graveyard, you may copy the spell and may choose a new target for the copy. Flashback is 5, so that's where you can play this from the graveyard and get a copy, get an extra. And you've got lots of stuff that are mana cost 3 or less in this deck. Lots of stuff.
And another little rogue that everyone loves to hate, Zulaport Cutthroat for 2, is a little 1/1. But when Zulaport Cutthroat or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life.
Ha! Changeling Outcast for 1, a 1/1. It's a changeling shapeshifter dude. This card is every creature type, and it can't block and it can't be blocked. So it's just gonna do the thing for you.
And because it can't be blocked and it's getting 1/1 counter from hopefully from your commander, It's going to be pretty big, pretty fast.
Yeah.
Valiant Changeling for
Ooh, so
6.
pretty.
It's a 3/3. It is very beautiful. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature type among creatures you control. So now it's not just your party, it's just creature types among creatures you control. And then this effect can't reduce the amount of mana past 5. So
Oh, darn.
you have a rogue, you have a cleric, you have a wizard, and you have a warrior, but you might also have a cat, you might have a human, your shapeshifters, or any creature type. So the likelihood is this is only going to cost you 2, and it's a changeling in and of itself, and it has double strike. Whew,
Nice.
So much on that card.
Ooh. Then we have speaking of cats, a mage's attendant for 2 and a white. It's a little 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, you get to create a 1/1 blue wizard creature token with pay 1. Sacrifice this creature and counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 1. Mm-hmm. You might want to do that, but you're more likely going to want to have the fact that there are 2 party members on this card alone.
Yeah. Irregular Cohort for 4 is a 2/2, and it's a changeling as well, another little nice support card. When Irregular Cohort enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 colorless shapeshifter creature token with changeling. So you get a changeling, again, helping you fill up your party. That is fantastic. Shauna, before we go on to the next one, how do we decide what goes in other versus what goes in high impact?
Oh, sure. So the high impact cards are ones that if you play them, they have to deal with them because otherwise you're going to win the game. So these cards, the other ones are ones that are gonna like help those cards win the game, or just kind of flavor for the deck's theme, that sort of thing. Maybe cards that you can think about taking out because they're not necessarily really impactful on the game, but your high impact cards are ones that if they don't deal with them, you're going to win the game.
And also, if they're high impact, they might be high impact, but they're really conditional, like high impact if this happens or if this happens.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. So that's also in the other cards because sometimes it's too conditional that it's really hard to make it happen.
Yeah. Anyways, continue. Mardu, Strike Leader.
Mardu, Strike Leader. It is a 3/2 for 3. Whenever it attacks, you put a 2/1 black warrior creature token on its battlefield. And it has dash of 3 and a black. So that dash means that you can cast it for its dash cost, and it has haste and does damage right away and then zips back into your hand. So you could be making a whole bunch of black warrior creature tokens because you're going to keep playing this back and forth, which is really handy.
Mm-hmm. And Archpriest of Iona is a 1 mana cost X2. Archpriest of Iona's power is equal to the number of creatures in your party, so up to 4. And then right away it's 1 because it counts itself as a cleric. And so at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, target creature gets +1/+1 and gains flying until the end of turn. So adding some evasion. Again, it's a great card. Might be a little conditional depending on how many are in your party.
Yeah. 8.5 tails for 2 white. It's a 2/2 that you can pay 2 and target permanent you control gains protection from white until end of turn. Or you can pay 1 and target spell or permanent becomes white until end of turn. Depends what you need. This one can maybe help you out. Yep. If you can say that big blocker of theirs is white, and then you're going to say that this card has protection from white. So no, you can't block it. Sorry.
And we have Frontline Medic for 3. It's a 3/3, and it's a human cleric, so it contributes to your party. Battalion, whenever Frontline Medic or at least 2 other creatures attack, and at least 2 other creatures can attack, creatures you control gain indestructible till the end of turn. So again, it helps you with that indestructible, being able to swing with abandon. You do have to attack with at least 2 other creatures, so it doesn't do anything if you can't do that. But you can sacrifice Frontline Medic and counter target spell with X in its mana cost unless its controller plays 3. A little bit conditional there because you don't know if anything's going to have X, but it's nice to have.
Yeah. Then you have a Gale Powder Mage, a Kithkin Wizard. That's a 3/3 for 4. It has flying. And whenever it attacks, exile another target creature. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. That's always useful.
And we have an Angel Cleric. There was another card in our high impact, you might remember, that helped with angels. So maybe this will be on the battlefield as well. It's 4 mana, cost 3/4, has flash, it has flying. And when it enters the battlefield, you may exile any number of non-angel creatures you control until Glorious Protector leaves the battlefield. So this is a great card to keep in your hand, again, until someone does a board wipe. You can foretell it so that you can pay it for a little bit less if you like later on. Or you can pay for its full mana cost. So foretelling, basically, you put it kind of in exile face down for 2, and then you can pay its 3 to cast it later. And then you're going to exile any number of non-angel creatures. So all of those party members are at this point not angels. You just put them all off to the side, and then when Glorious Protector leaves the battlefield, you can put them back on.
So. It's a great way to protect your stuff.
Yep.
Mirror Entity, little 1/1 changeling shapeshifter dude for 3. And you can pay X until end of turn. Creatures you control have base power and toughness XX and gain all creature types. Whoa, that could be crazy, especially if you have counters on stuff.
Order of White Clay for 3. It's a 1/4. Little Kithkin Cleric. It has the ability that you can pay 3 and untap it to return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to play. So you will have to figure out some way to tap it. Attacking is a good way. You might not want to attack with him though, because he might not be big enough for whatever reason.
He's got a big butt though.
He does have a big butt, but you do have to untap him to use his ability. So,
right. Selfless Spirit for 1 and a white. It's a little 2/1 spirit cleric with flying, and you can sacrifice it, and creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. People are going to hesitate before attacking you.
Yeah. And Solemn Recruit, another hesitate one because it has double strike. It's a 2/2 for 3. It does also have Revolt. So at the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, you get to put a 1/1 counter on Solemn Recruit. So, nice. Yeah. Just going to keep getting bigger.
Exactly. Bloodsoaked Champion for 1 black. It's a 2/1. He can't block, but he does have Raid, which means you can pay 2 and return it from your graveyard to the battlefield, and activate only if you've attacked this turn. So, yeah, he'll keep coming back for you. All right.
And that's it for that section. And the last section is, of course, our land. We won't go into all the land that's in, but there is a lot of great land in this, in all of these decks.
Yeah.
So check those out. But there are approximately, the formula calls for 34. There's 37. So we didn't have a lot of ramp, but we do have a lot of land in this deck. So you could use that to tweak if you want to bring it down, or you could keep that in there because there's not a lot of ramp. But again, we always say before you tweak, play with it a couple times first.
Exactly.
One thing I'll say before we move into our tweaks is that when I played it, every time I used my commander's ability to look at the top card of my library, it was a friggin' land. So... Yeah. It was really annoying. I was very cranky. I still won that game though. So I don't know. Now we're on to our tweaks. Do you want to go into tweaks?
Yes. So the White Plume Adventure is the first one we were thinking of. This is one of those initiative cards. It is a cleric for 2 and a white. It's a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, you take initiative. So that means you get to go and dive into the dungeon. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you untap a creature you control. If you completed a dungeon, you get to untap all creatures you control instead. So, having that initiative, going through that dungeon is going to help you attack and untap. Nice.
Yeah, we just thought like if you wanted to go the initiative route, you have that little undercity that's here, so why not use it and put your other rogues and clerics in there? So Safana Calimport Cutthroat is another rogue. 3/2 for 3. It has menace, and then at the beginning of your end step, if you have the initiative, you get to create a treasure token and then create 3 of those tokens instead if you've completed a dungeon. And this one, of course, could be your commander. You could create a background, not in this deck because it's only one color. But yeah,
Your
so not
background could be
only,
white.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, sorry, lost my train of thought. That's fine. I was just going to say, not only does this get you treasure tokens as well because you have the initiative, but you also have what initiative gives you at the beginning of your upkeep. You get to venture into the dungeon. So you got a couple things going on there if you put this one in.
Ravenloft Adventurer. This is a human rogue assassin for a 3/4 for 3 and a black. It has, when it enters the battlefield, you take the initiative. If a creature an opponent controls would die, instead you exile it and put a hit counter on it. Whenever this card attacks, if you've completed a dungeon, you get to defending player loses 1 life for each card they own and exile with a hit counter on it. Very cool. Make the creatures die, get hit counters, and then they lose life. That's nice.
That's great. All right, so then Dungeoneer's Pack we thought would be a great one for this. It's just a very versatile card. Of course, it's a very versatile thing if you play D&D as well. It does enter the battlefield tapped, but then the next turn you can pay 2 and tap it to sacrifice Dungeoneer's Pack and take the initiative. Gain 3 life, draw a card, and create a treasure token. So when you need to take the initiative, you can take it. And you get all those other things as well. So it's a nice little versatile. It helps with some of those other sections that maybe didn't have as much in them.
Yeah, definitely. Then we've got Coveted Prize, which is, we thought we'd take advantage of some of these other party cards that came out in, what was this? This was, oh my gosh, Zendikar Rising. So this is a sorcery. It costs 1 less to cast for each creature you have in your party. You get to search your library for a card and put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. If you have a full party, though, you may cast a spell with converted mana cost 4 or less from your hand without paying for it. So go find that 4 mana cost card that you need and play it for free. Woohoo!
Yeah. That's awesome. Or less, right?
Or less.
Like, great.
Yeah.
Amira Captain for 4 is a 1/1. She has flying. She has vigilance. And when she enters the battlefield, you get to put a 1/1 counter on it for each creature in your party. So, again, just taking advantage of some of that party. She's an angel. And we thought if you wanted some double strike angels later, you might want her on the battlefield. And she also counts as a warrior. So.
Then we have Journey to Oblivion, which is an enchantment that costs 4 and a white, and the spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. Again, reducing that by 4 would be really great. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent opponent controls until Journey to the Oblivion leaves the battlefield. I've played this a lot in standard Maskwood Nexus kind of deck. It's just fun. Party.
And then Lightning Greaves. Surprisingly, there's no Lightning Greaves in this deck, but if you have one, it would be good to put in here because you should try to protect your commander at all costs. It has haste and shroud, so that shroud is what you want. Now, a reminder that shroud means that you can't target it as well, so if you are needing to... And equipment has to be done at sorcery speed. So the whole 1/1 counters on each... Oh no, it's each creature, so that's okay. But anything that's target creature, you couldn't target your commander because you can't target her yourself.
Right. Okay. Then we've got some little bit of protection here. So Darksteel Axe is a 1 mana cost indestructible equipment that says equipped creature gets +2/+0. And equip is 2. So yeah, it's gonna actually, it doesn't protect your commander. It's just indestructible, but it makes your Makes your stuff bigger.
Yeah.
For cheap.
And then Avalons Memorial for 5, 6, 7, 8 is a legendary artifact. It has indestructible, and other legendary permanents you control have indestructible. So now your commander definitely has indestructible, as well as any of the other legendaries that you have, including enchantments and artifacts and all of those things. This would be a good add. I found that this was hard to keep a party going because everyone was playing board wipes and being super annoying like that.
Maybe me.
Yeah. It wasn't just you, it was everybody, including me.
Angelic Guardian, it's a 5/5 flying angel for 4 and 2 white, taking advantage of that angel piece. But whenever one or more creatures you control attack, they gain indestructible. I can't talk. They gain indestructible until end of turn. So yeah, that's gonna help your stuff be protected.
And again, I know you've got it, okay? There's lots of things that have indestructible. But another example is Hammer of Nazahan. When it enters the battlefield, or another equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach the equipment to target creature you control. So you get to attach it for free. And then any other equipment you attach for free. This one definitely gives that creature +2/+0 and indestructible. So nice little addition to this deck if you can put it in.
Swing it. Sheltering Light. It is a little 1 mana cost instant that. Well, because we were protecting.
Indestructible. We want to protect our party.
Commander, and the party needs to be protected. This one lets you scry though, which is handy. Yeah. Get rid of that land that's in your way, Leslie.
Yep. Selfless Saver, a little 1/1. You can sacrifice it and give something indestructible until the end of turn.
Yep. Karametro's Blessing. Pay 1 as an instant. Target creatures +2/+2 until end of turn. If it's enchantment or enchanted creature, it also gains hexproof and indestructible. So.
And Shauna found this nice little Cleric Avatar, which of course adds to your party, and it's fun. So it's a Transcendent Master for 3. It starts off as a 3/3, but you can level it up, make it a 6/6, and then make it a 9/9 when it's a 9/9, so levels 12 and up. Basically, you pay 1 for each level, and you can do that multiple times. So if you have 12 mana to spend into it right off the bat, it's a 9/9 indestructible. So, I guess you'd only need 11 because it starts at level 1. So 11 mana and you just get a 9/9, or you could do that over 2 turns or however you want to do it.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Now, some cards that have that shapeshifter thing. Birthing Bows. Well, I guess just the one that has that. Pay 4 and create a 2/2 colorless shapeshifter creature token with Changeling. So that, along with the Maskwood Nexus, gets you more creatures just from an artifact sitting there, which is nice.
Yeah. And then Voice of the Blessed. There's not a ton of lifelink in this deck, but there is life gain. So Voice of the Blessed for 2, it's a 2/2, and whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on Voice of the Blessed. As long as it has 4 counters, it gets flying and vigilance. And then if it has 10 or more counters, it's indestructible. So remember the Extort, remember the Cutthroat, all of those. Whenever you gain life from those, this would get a counter. Plus, you're going to be putting counters on it through other means, and so it would be a good one to add because then your commander giving it counters and stuff. It's just crazy when it has vigilance and flying and is indestructible. It's a good little card.
Awesome. All right. So thank you for sticking around with us. That's it for this time. We are available on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and Twitch. You can hang out with us there too. Feel free to connect with us anywhere. We are happy to talk about Magic the Gathering and whatever else you want to talk about. That's it for this time. Oh, tell us how you would tweak this deck, because as you saw, we put in a whole bunch of indestructible stuff because we want to protect our party. So what would you do to protect your party? We want to know. So until next time.
Tap those magic cards. Have fun doing it. Bye, guys.